yeah, we'll talk about human nature, and I think how kind of we can do better both for our teams and for kind of the wider colleagues and everyone else. So a little intro about me and Mettle and who we are, a bit about human nature and some of the mistakes we're making, a bit about how engaged people are important, and some closing thoughts. So, Mettle, you may have heard of it, you may not. It's kind of NatWest's sort of challenger bank for small businesses, so it's growing quite quickly. I'm in quite a privileged position that we are part of NatWest, so we get a banking license and funding and all that cool stuff, but we're also fairly independent in terms of that we're cloud native, so it's all like DevOps, Agile, AWS, GCP. So I get to kind of play both as a financial services CISO, but also as a CISO doing stuff the cool kids are as well. So it's a pretty good place to be. So yeah, Mettle is growing. It's growing really fast. If you're kind of a small business or a kind of sole trader doing a side hustle, that kind of thing, it's a really good little bank account for you. But the other thing we're doing as well as Mettle is a thing called BaaS, so banking as a service. So that's where we kind of have to grow up and start talking to kind of more marquee customers as well. That will be coming out later this year. But that's where you can do kind of embedded payments. So you know now if you're checking out somewhere and you go off to Klarna or to PayPal or whatever else, by embedding payments in it, you can actually have the merchant owns end-to-end that process. So in apps and websites, they can own whether you get a loan, how you do payments, whatever else, and other banking services we can offer, all kind of API driven and that. So that's going to be interesting how we start shaking up payments and kind of embedded payments in websites and apps. So me, obviously you'll know me as the sensible CISO that I am, but also I do things like Saturday night this week, I train a bunch of fighters, so I do a lot of stuff in the gym and sitting in ice baths, which was not fun, it was amazing. I've got a little girl who's 7, that's Molly, and my wife, Georgia, who's also about to give us a little boy in the next couple of weeks. So I'm also on high alert for phone calls about needing to go to hospital at any moment. Yeah, so I guess the good thing, what this touches on though, is that we're all humans, right? So we quite often think about security people. You know, we talk about burnout, we talk about stress and everything else, but we are all people, right? We've all got lives, we've all got a lot of different aspects to who we are, and we have to remember to treat ourselves and our industry and our colleagues as people, not just kind of cogs in that security machine. So human nature, it's really complex, as touching on, and we ignore it at our peril. And I think there's 2 areas that we kind of get it wrong, which basically is everything, but how we look into our industry, how we look after our people, how we get our engagement from our teams, and how the fact that we have to give ourselves a break, right? We're all susceptible to the same things as the colleagues we're trying to protect, and obviously all of our colleagues and people in our organisation we're trying to protect, as Tim nicely touched on, how do we keep them engaged, how do we make it relevant to them, how do we not punish them, because that doesn't help anyone. So yeah, as I said, we're getting it wrong in both directions, and I think we can do a lot better at that. So looking in to us. So you often hear when we're talking about security, we all think we're special snowflakes and we're all different and security's hard and it's different to everything else. But reality is we all want to be different, which kind of makes us all the same, right? So fundamentally, we are people, we're susceptible to things. And I also find if you look at security, I do a lot of stuff in fitness, as I said, it's the same, people are trying to do the same things. People want the shortcuts. In kind of fitness world, people want like the 6-minute abs. They want to get lean without any work. They want to be fit and healthy without having to put the work in over time. Same for us. Those same things that drive those behaviors are the same for security professionals, right? We'd love to have that silver bullet. So sometimes sales tactics do work on us. An example of myself, using myself as a person that can be duped occasionally as well. As I mentioned, I kind of coach people, and I'm very big on the fact coaching should have some kind of in-person or at the very least kind of video content, so you make sure someone's safe and moving well. I hate the kind of online programs where you just give, and here's what you should do, and the people giving you that program has no idea if you're getting injured, if you're doing things wrong, if you're building up injuries over time, if it's what you need, right, how well you're moving. So I think it's a terrible idea, but it's also quite hard to program for yourself. So I recently tried, there's a gym that happens to be near where I used to live in Harpenden, and they've got quite a good reputation. Their in-person stuff's quite good. They've got really glossy Instagram, all that kind of stuff. And I was like, hey, they're like me. They do similar training to me. They live where I used to live. They kind of look like me, all of that good stuff. So they had all that things that relate to me, and they kind of talk about doing things differently. So I kind of signed up for their online program, and it's relatively expensive, an online program, but I thought I'd try it for a couple of months. During those 2 months, I had 0 check-ins or contacts from them whatsoever. So it's literally just, here's stuff to do. And I could have been, I'm lucky I'm quite professional at it, but I could have been someone who'd never trained before, doing all of these complicated movements, putting weight on my back and getting gradually more and more injured because they didn't put any time at all into check-ins. and they're charging like 80 quid a month for this, they could put a couple of hours a month in to help people out and still make some good money, right? But I believe the hype, because they're like me, they're from where I'm from, all of that kind of stuff, and they had a really good messaging. So I guess think about how that relates to us and the kind of security sales cycle and whatever else, right? Yes, we need products and we need capabilities to protect ourselves, but one of the big tactics people will use is kind of, hey, we're like you. We've worked with organizations like you before. You know, I get a lot of messages going, you know, I too like Thai boxing or whatever else. So look at your profile and find things out about you to make them relatable to you. Then you're more susceptible to kind of getting stuck in with a product that may not be right because, hey, these guys are just like me. It's great. But give yourself a kind of a bit of a pass on it as well, because we are all humans, right? And we like to think we're all very kind of analytical and process-driven, whatever else, but you're not. As Tim touched on, we're kind of emotional people, and it's context, and it's in the moment, and we're in a rush, and whatever else. So yeah, just kind of be aware that we're people, and when you're looking after yourself and your team, treat ourselves like people and realize we can make the same mistakes. I like to talk about the fact with phishing. I think phishing training is garbage. I think you should train people and reward like good behaviour, so reward things like reporting, not punish people click on links. Because I use that example, if I'm caught or someone in my team's caught at that right moment, no matter how good we think we are, everyone here has probably clicked on a link when they shouldn't at some point in their life, right? And if you haven't, you're probably not using the internet, right? We've all clicked on links. We all get caught out. So why are we punishing people who know nothing about security when we might be susceptible as well? So just kind of think about that human element. Looking out. Often we talk about people being the problem, and I think that's when you look at it, we're only here because of these people in their business, right? If there wasn't an organisation that's trying to, whatever your organisation is trying to do, if they didn't exist trying to do the awesome thing they're trying to do, they wouldn't need us as a team, right? So we shouldn't be calling them the problem. They are the only reason we're here. So be kind of mindful of how we talk to people and what we expect from them. So taking budget as an example, I can work a spreadsheet a bit. I can do a budget for my team and my strategy, my security plan. And I can work within finance of how do you want it split up, do you want it chopped up in 12 months, annually, whatever else. But I don't understand what they then go and do with it as part of the overall organisation budget and how finance do finance stuff, right? And they don't expect me to. So why do we expect our colleagues to have in-depth knowledge of what they should and shouldn't click on, where they should put stuff? Should I download stuff? Can I put it there? They don't necessarily need to know all of that. So let's make sure they understand. We understand what they're trying to achieve and help them, but also only expect them to know enough to do their jobs, as opposed to kind of expecting them to know absolutely everything that they could possibly know. So again, we touched on this, and I think Tim covered this as well a little bit. Punishing is terrible. If you make someone feel bad for something, we all have egos, right? If I come over and call you an idiot, you're not receptive to learning. You're like, no, I'm not an idiot. It wasn't my fault. Your test was stupid. So you immediately get people being confrontational if you try and punish them for stuff, especially if they feel tricked. So look at ways of educating them and showing stuff, and rather than focusing on what you click on, unless someone's literally clicking on a link for an email from their Nigerian prince brother, right? Something really obvious. If it's anything less obvious than that, let's reward the people who report it, not punish the people who click it. Yeah? Because it's kind of our fault as an industry and as a tech industry. Why are there so many dodgy fake websites? Why can I register a fake website and sell fake goods and send fake emails so obviously, and the whole of the internet and the industry around that allows it, right? So we've got this whole thing where people are allowed to do bad stuff. It's like being able to sell a 3-wheel car with no brakes. It's crazy that you're in this world where we're creating a dangerous environment for people to work in and then expecting them to be safe when we could just prevent the bad from happening in the first place. But I kind of understand that. Annual mandatory training, jokes, total jokes. There was I can't remember what it was called, it's in a book I read recently, but there was a study in one of the American colleges where they're really, really big on people kind of fitting in and conforming and being acting a certain way. And as you join, there's literally an entire week of kind of onboarding to kind of indoctrinate you into the way they're working. And everyone goes through it and signs a little thing saying, hey, yeah, I love this place, I'm going to be just perfect and do whatever you want. A week later, everyone's back to behaving normally, right? Because no matter how hard you train someone, it doesn't stick unless you keep nudging them and keep working with them. So annual training scientifically, provably does not work. I don't believe it's changed the security posture of any organisation anywhere, yet we still do it. So move away from that, move to kind of frequent nudges, frequent interactions, and make them as contextual as possible, not just in terms of the timeliness of them, but also relevant to that person. So how do you protect yourself at home? What is it you're trying to achieve in your job? So what do you need to know to achieve your job? Make it relevant to what they're doing in their daily life. And social engineering, kind of touched on the sort of how I was social engineered by a training company, right? We're all susceptible to it. If something sells to you in the right way or catches you in the right way, people are experts at this stuff, especially if they can get you on the phone or something a bit more interactive than an email. So teach people the signs to look for, but also kind of do as much as you can from kind of technical and process ways to protect them. Really simple stuff like if you get a money transfer request, phone the CFO on the phone number you know. Yeah, the same thing as the banks say. If you get a message, don't ever reply to it, phone us on the number you know. Really simple things that you're never going to get punished for, but can really improve the security posture without being sort of onerous or challenging for people to remember. So engage people. So I kind of touched on this. Your team's your best defense. You too can be the Power Rangers. But think about how we're treating our team. Is how many security teams are, the day doesn't go by when you don't read about security burnout. It's so difficult, it's so hard, right? And that's because of the way we're treating people as kind of autonomous, right? How do we engage our people? How do we empower them? How do you give them as much flexibility in working as possible? So, one of the things I make a very big point of, I have my daughter half the time, and I pick her up from school and I drop her off at school. So I've got them in my calendar, publicly, not hidden away from anyone, Molly, dotted throughout my calendar, to make it clear to my team that it's really acceptable to take time to do things like pick your kids up from school, go to the doctors, whatever else you need to do. Right? We're all humans, we all have families and things to deal with, and most of us are quite lucky to be in a profession where we can have some flexibility and still do our job, right? So be kind of public about how you're a human, especially if you lead teams and manage teams, because that sets the tone for your team. Do things like have a little message on your emails, like if you do emails at funny times, like I'll catch up at weird times or whatever else, but have the little message on your email that says, hey, I might reply to this at a certain time, or just because I sent this to you at the weekend doesn't mean I expect a response outside of working hours, right? So make your expectations clear and lead by example. And talking about where I work and being treated well, week 2 of being there, my boss said to me, make sure you put that in your calendar and done that as well. I'd already done it, but it was that kind of place to work. And I was like, that's really good. So I'm now very proactive about how good a place it is to work. We're just people, albeit very special people, but we are just people, right? So as an industry, do we think we're solving the problems the right way? Whether you're selling stuff or using stuff, think about how we're engaging with our teams, how we're helping our teams do better, and even things like automation and stuff, right? Focus on automating crappy daily tasks so your team can do the interesting work. And then looking out. So people are your best defense. So fundamentally, we talk about people being the problem or people being the challenge, right? But most of the time, people are trying to do a good job. If we've given them a crappy laptop, they may be emailing work home to do it on their nice computer at home because it's a nicer environment for them to work in. Or they may be trying to download stuff to their machine if you're trying to say, hey, everything should be in the cloud because they want to work on the train or in a cafe or whatever else. So 9 times out of 10, when people are doing things wrong, they're actually just trying to work or do a better job, right? So understand what they're trying to achieve, and our goal should be, what are you trying to achieve? How can we help you do that safely? So if as an organisation you're saying people should be able to work from anywhere, then how do we let people work from anywhere? Our perimeter is the laptop or the mobile phone because they're working from anywhere, right? If you're saying, no, you can't do that, that's fine, but you need to be very clear about what you're trying to allow and how people are trying to work. If people need, you've got developers or whatever, and they need to kind of have a huge amount of screen real estate, let them have 2 monitors, all those kind of good stuff. So how do you work with people? How do you enable it? If you've got transfer data to other organisations, how do we let you do that simply and safely rather than just moan about people emailing it but not providing a better solution? So how do we, and to get more listened to as part of the organisation as well, how do you as a team support your organisation's goals, right? So if they want to move fast, how do you, buzzwords like shift left and stuff, how do you ensure developers get told what they need to do really early on? How are you engaging with all of your project teams and strategy teams in your organisation for getting stuck in at the start of ideas rather than coming at the end and going, nah, you shouldn't have done that? Understanding what people need to know. So again, coming back to what's the minimum kind of efficacy for security culture change. I like to use the term culture rather than awareness because awareness doesn't mean careness, right? It doesn't mean you care. So you want to have that cultural change, drive that kind of need to know how people are engaging, how people are kind of doing their job safely. And you can have loads more training, so I'm a big fan of having those, your frequent nudge-based training with the minimum effective dose for everyone depending on their role, but they can access it all as well, right? So if they want to learn more, it's there for them to learn more, but you're only going to kind of try and push them with the minimum amount of knowledge they need to be safe in their role rather than kind of overwhelming them with stuff they don't necessarily need. So last few bits on this. So fundamentally, check in with your teams. So what you should do next, check in with your team, see how they're doing. Genuinely make sure your one-to-ones and your time with them is much more, how are you doing? How are you getting on? How can we help you? What's stressing you out? And not just at work. Personal life affects work, right? If someone's going through a divorce or they've got a sick child or they're just like buying a house or decorate, whatever it is, the stuff outside of work impacts how much kind of stress you can cope with at work because you've got a limited amount of kind of stress and capacity to deal with stuff in any given day or week. Remember, we're all human, we can all be duped, right? So make sure you're like working with your teams on being that kind of attitude outwardly from your teams as well. So get them to be very positive with how they engage with the organisation. Check in with your organisation. So how are we doing? So one of the first things I've been doing in a new role is asking all my kind of key stakeholders, leadership, people in engineering, etc., how well the team's been working with them, what's good and bad, how well are we engaging with them, what more would they like to see. So even if you're not new, do that. If you haven't done that for a while, check in with your kind of key stakeholders. What would they like to see from you? How well are you engaging? Are you actually helping them with their mission? And if not, work with them how you can help them better. And that might just be providing more visibility about what you're doing. Make sure your thought processes are how we can help. So again, rather than going, as an example, at the moment, a lot of you are probably going through kind of, what do we do with kind of AI and ChatGPT and stuff? Should we use it? Should we ban it, right? But look through history. It's coming. It's there. Even if you ban it at work, people will go home and ask it work-related questions. Or they'll sit on their phone and ask it work-related questions in the office, right, on their personal device. So you need to have, for all of these things, when new things come along that can improve how we work, rather than being like, no, you can't use it. It's a channel for exfiltration. How can we use it safely? What guidance do we need to give people to use it safely? How can we put controls in to allow its safe use? Otherwise, you'll be left behind, or people just go around you. And obviously, that gets back to that old kind of security says no, so no one's interested in listening at that point either. And then look at your training, as we kind of touched on that a few times, but frequent engaging nudges. Make it relatable and personal, and limit mandatory to the minimum people need to know. Lastly, go be awesome, do a great job, because I'm sure we're all trying to do the same thing in a difficult world. And remember, you're the problem, but you're also the solution. I stole that from someone, but it's quite cool. Thank you.